This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Xcast X-Files Podwatch, episode 21, covering the episodes Colony and Endgame. What a two-parter. I am your host, Tony Black, the creator of all things Xcast, and joining me for the first time in ages is my old mate, Andrew Brooker. How are you?
I am good, thank you, mate. I am good. It has been a bloody long time since you and me have been on a podcast together.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen each other a couple of times in the real world this year, of various things, but yeah, we haven't recorded together for... I genuinely can't remember the last time.
Yeah, it has been a long time. Certainly been a long time since we've done an X-Files episode together.
Yes, and the thing with this is, the special thing about this little Podwatch is the fact that originally you and I were going to do these two as the main episodes. As anyone who's listening will recall, Colony and Endgame we did as part of Season 2 earlier in the year, and Darren Mooney came on and did a great job on that episode with me, and we did it. I think we got into the episode in a really good way. But you were the original guest, and due to various circumstances beyond your control, you couldn't make it. So I'm really glad we can recreate that in miniature.
Yeah,
for this one,
almost like a what could have been episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Just very, very much smaller, because like the Colony and Endgames one, I think they total something like 3 hours or 3.5 hours combined. So it
is a tough couple of episodes. There's a lot to talk about.
There is, which we're going to find it difficult with just 20 minutes, I think. But you know, we're going to give it a shot. We're going to give it a shot. Colony and Endgame, of course, is the one of the big two-parters in season 2. So let's start off then with Colony, the first one of this two-parter, which aired on February the 10th, 1995, and was written by Chris Carter. Well, teleplay was by Chris Carter. The story was by David Duchovny and Chris Carter, and was directed by Nick Mark. And this obviously introduces the alien bounty hunter when Mulder and Scully are investigating the deaths of cloned doctors in various parts of the US. After which Mulder gets a really strange phone call from his dad, goes home, and his sister's back. What the hell is going on? I mean, I love this two-parter. And what struck me when we were recording the main episodes was how different part 1 and part 2 are. Have you ever found that?
I have a lot, and it's one of those episodes that when you first watch them, or when you're maybe like when you and me first watched them when we were a bit younger, it didn't strike you straight away that they were different. Usually because what you did was watch them. I'm going to bring these up again. The double episode VHS things. So literally, it was an hour and a half long X-Files episode. It wasn't 2 separate episodes. It wasn't 2 episodes with completely different tonal shifts in it. So it's not till you get on a little bit and you start watching them for the Xcast or for a quick binge that you realised, oh, these are very different episodes.
Colony's a bit more of like a investigative, mystery, and then by the time you get to Endgame, which we'll talk about in a bit, it's much more of a big budget sort of action, thriller basically. But I like them both sort of equally. I think if I had to edge it, probably Endgame would get it. But what I really like about Colony is the fact that it really does work hard to enter the story in a real X-Files way. These identical doctors are dying. It doesn't open out into this big, huge episode, but where by the end, Mulder's on a submarine in the Arctic until much later. At the beginning it is a mystery, and then you have the stuff like when the Ambrose Chapel guy turns up and gives them an entirely different sort of explanation for the whole thing, like Cold War, experiments and stuff. I love it when Chris Carter does that, because he's really good at sort of coming up with an explanation that's out there, but not as out there as like shape-shifting alien Terminators. Do you know what I mean?
It does have this kind of feel about it. If you watched Colony on its own and you didn't know the X-Files mythology, you could actually, for the first maybe third of that episode, not be convinced that it was a mythology episode. It could be an episode all on its own.
Yeah, it could be, really. I mean, it could be a bit like Eve, which was obviously about clones and experiments and stuff like that. You could say it could be that, but then immediately, though, what's great about Colony is you've got this whopping great, weirdness. I'll never forget that scene where you first realise the bounty hunter can shapeshift, when he opens the trunk and that agent's dead, and then you see him shift. I honestly, I get chills whenever I see him shift like that. And because that is one of the first instances of a really sort of openly, weird alien thing in the show properly that's out there, and he's just pretending to be human. I mean, that, for me, that's a game-changing moment.
Oh, it really is. It was that moment where you go, "Whoa, this is a little bit more than I thought it was going to be." Yeah. But it's also one of those things that for the first time, it's not just Mulder that's seeing these things happen, because they're happening out in the world to other people, and it kind of made it very real. Probably not the right word, but the best word I can come up with.
Well, yeah, I know what you mean. It's sort of that whole thing of, could it actually happen? The Colony's different. You can tell the difference between director, because I think Rob Bowman does Endgame, and it's much glossier and it's much more of a big budget sort of scale. You can always spot a Rob Bowman episode, but Colony's a bit more, ground level and a bit more, not edgy maybe. I don't know. It's just a little bit more realistic. So I know what you mean by that. There's just the way it looks and the way it's filmed that makes you think, oh God, what if this actually happened?
You could remove Mulder and Scully from that and put somebody else in, and it could be a good alien episode of something else. And, obviously it would be lacking from not having Mulder and Scully in it, but it doesn't necessarily need Mulder and Scully to further the plot in this, in parts of this episode.
Well, yeah, it's only really when you get the big, late second act twist where Mulder goes home and Samantha's there, where it does change. It does become more personal. I mean, watching it a few times, it takes bravery to just suddenly twist the story in that way, doesn't it? I mean, because it's a completely left field thing just thrown in. There's no hint of it. Well, there is a hint of it when you see Samantha beforehand, but you don't know. When you first watch that, you don't think, oh, that's Samantha Mulder. No way. It's just a woman. It's just a woman with brown hair. And then when that happens, you're like, what? I love that.
And it's interesting when you watch it afterwards as well. You after you've seen the rest of it, that's the point where they commit to the Samantha alien thing for the next 8 seasons.
Yeah, pretty much. Because then they sort of revisit this, don't they, in the Redux episodes, and do a little bit more with it. But yeah, it's a real sort of... And then, you obviously get the sense that, Mulder's dad is... it's the first time you meet Mulder's dad, I think, this one, played brilliantly by Peter Donat. And his family situation is very different from Scully's. We've already seen Scully's, and they're much warmer, and they love each other a lot more. This lot are a bit more.
They're kind of cold.
They are a bit. They are. They're cold and distant, and it's a great episode. And then it's got that whopping massive cliffhanger. I love the cliffhanger of this. This is one of my favourite cliffhangers the show ever did. When Scully's there, door knocks, she's on the phone. Mulder's at the door, phone rings, it's Mulder, she just turns around, and you get that music, and it's like, oh!
Wouldn't that drive you up the wall if you had to wait a week for part 2?
Oh, man. You see, I don't know whether I did. I don't know whether I watched the video like you did. I suspect I did. I suspect I bought the VHS and watched it that way, so I didn't have to wait a week. I only really remember season 3 being when I started waiting weeks when it was on Sky. But yeah, that would have killed you, really. They don't make... as good as cliffhangers are, as good as Game of Thrones is and all these things, they don't make cliffhangers like that anymore.
No, they don't. And they don't... They definitely do that, especially with, big, high-budget stuff like Game of Thrones. They know how to make you go, what the... No! But I still don't get the same reaction I get out of watching X-Files, even to this day.
Yeah. Just
oh shit, I've got to go to bed. No, I want to watch the next episode.
Yeah, and that same chill down your spine that the end of this gives you, which it always does. But yeah, Colony's a really good start, a really good, interesting start to the episode. So let's tee that cliffhanger up as an excuse to talk about the next one. Endgame, then, is, as I said before, directed by Rob Bowman, aired on February the 17th, 1995, and was written by Frank Spotnitz. The first ever script Frank Spotnitz wrote for the show, and obviously he went on to be Chris Carter's right hand, really, for the majority of the rest of it, really, except season 10.
He's become quite a name on his own as well, because he'll have to do Man in the High Castle, isn't he?
Yeah, Man in the High Castle. He's done loads, because he's got his Big Light, I think they're called, Big Light Productions. And he's based in England now, so he's completely out of the... he lives in London, so he's completely out of the X-Files crew, sadly. He's not back for season 10, he's not going to be back for season 11. But his first script here, which obviously takes, the story, and Mulder goes off with Samantha and the bounty hunters on their trail, and Scully's kidnapped, and then it all just escalates into this big, explosive chase thriller, really, moving away from the more investigative thing of Colony. I think it works, though. I think what he does with it really does work for the story.
Yeah, absolutely. He turns it into a... If you made this into a film, it would be like a really taut kind of investigative thriller. You're talking like maybe not quite as gruesome as, but like Seven kind of grimy thrillery. I really, really like this episode. And like you, I think if I had to choose between the two, this would be my favourite of the two.
Yeah, it's got I think it's got more memorable moments, Endgame. I mean, right from the beginning with, the X-Files was doing something, actually, in terms of structure, and I think we may have discussed this on the actual Colony and Endgame episodes, but how it leaves you with a cliffhanger, but then doesn't immediately come back to that in the teaser. The teaser will do something different, and it will show a different angle to the story. In this case, the story of the USS Allegiance, the ship that's sent out to intercept the UFO, the alien bounty hunter crashed in, and then it goes all wrong, and they're sinking and whatever, and they're under the massive ice. But it sets up the climax of the episode, but it doesn't immediately return you to the cliffhanger. And the X-Files was great at that. And before getting you back into the story, it does a little bit different, something different. But then when you do get back into the story, yeah, it's got brilliant moments. I mean, that whole sequence on the bridge is just so well put together. Where they've got the sniper, and he goes to meet the bounty hunter. It's just so good,
It's really, it's a thing that struck me, actually, when I watched it. I watched it again this evening before we recorded, and it is just so well edited as well. So there's not a dull second in that scene. It's edited together perfectly. It's such a good scene. It's
put together really well, and and Mark Snow's music's brilliant throughout this episode, and it builds, to that point where you just don't know what's going to happen with this one. I always remember that feeling. You didn't know where it was going to go. So when he gets shot and Samantha and him tumble into the sea, you think he's going to be with Samantha for the whole episode, but he's not. Very quickly that wraps up. Him and Scully are back together, and then it goes off into a different direction. It's so good at that. It's got a real spring in its step for that kind of thing, and it utilises the rest of the characters really well. I mean, how can we forget the Skinner and X moment?
Probably my favourite bit of the episode.
yeah. It's just
it's one of the first times you see Skinner really, really going to bat for them.
Yeah,
and he is so good in that moment where he threatens a dude that you assume until this point he's not entirely sure who he is. We're led to assume that Mr. X, he's a bit of a loner, and no one apart from Mulder knows about him, but clearly Skinner does.
Well, this is the thing with Skinner, because obviously he knew the Smoking Man was. He doesn't know everything about the Smoking Man, but he knows him enough to be able to give him a call in the old days, or give Mulder his address. I mean, he must know him fairly well to be able to give Mulder his address in one breath. So, given we don't know yet that Mr. X works directly for the Smoking Man, we don't find that out till Wet Wired, but they're in the same world, so it's that whole thing of Skinner may well have come across him at some point, or he may well have seen him, So it's that murkiness. It's the fact Skinner's still got one, foot in that murky conspiratorial water. But yeah, like you said, he really does bat for them. How hard do you want to make this? No harder than it has to be.
What's quite interesting for me as well is I remember watching. I'm pretty sure I watched them more or less in chronological order, but the ones I remember watching on video, I remember watching 82571 first, or before this at least. Then I owned Colony and watched that. So by the time I'd gotten to watching Colony and Endgame regularly, Mr. X was 100% good guy because he'd dragged Mulder out of the train.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, well, hold on a fucking minute. Not entirely sure about this, lads.
Yeah, well, exactly. Because at this point, he's still not really giving him much, has he? He's still, and then you get to Softlight, and he's, they go their separate ways. They have a bit of a row and whatnot, and he's a bit devious. So yeah, you're right. Eventually, he turns out to be a good guy. Takes him a while. But here he's still technically the bad guy. But that's what's great about this. When you watch it back, though, when you watch this fight back, they're both good guys, and they're both really hard, alpha males, and they're kicking the shit out of each other. I mean, what's great about it is they get bloodied. It hurts. That fight hurts to the point you can see the set wobbling. Like at one point, you can see the lift doors.
I've always said that Mitch Pileggi looks like he had a previous life as a boxer. Because you see him a little bit, a couple of episodes where he runs around in his vest in X-Files, but a little later on, even when he's a bit older in things like Sons of Anarchy, when you look at him, that dude definitely used to box.
Yeah, he's a bit of a tank, isn't he? I mean, they brought that into SR819 though, didn't they? Later on, where Skinner's actually boxing, and that's when he gets that virus. But yeah, he's boxing, and so it makes you wonder if either Mitch Pileggi did box or they thought the same about Skinner and went, you know what, should we give him like boxing as a hobby? And yeah, I think you're right there. I think you're right. But yeah, the whole of this episode's it's just great. And then by the time you get to the ending, when you get to that climax where Mulder goes to the Arctic, I mean, aside from the fact it was like the biggest set they'd ever constructed on the X-Files, it was this huge set filled with ice that they created and this massive submarine conning tower. The feat of that was impressive enough. But then you get the great climax where Mulder faces the bounty hunter. And what I love about it is, and again, I think we talked about this in the main episode, but he's just desperate by this point, and he's almost crying when he's fighting this bounty hunter, and he's just tell me where my sister is. And then sadistically, he tells him she's alive, and when he probably knows she's not, and it's just nasty, it's just nasty. He's such a bastard.
Yeah, you do look at him, you bastard. You absolute bastard.
He really is. It really is. But it's a really good way to end the episode. I think it opens up the show, doesn't it? It makes the show bigger. It makes it much more of a, event television. It makes it not just this weird, quirky little, science fiction show. It makes it this big thing. And I think this was one of the first. This and Anasazi were the episodes that put it properly on the map, and everyone started to go, actually, this is really good.
Yeah, this isn't just some procedural, guys. This is something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, this is like movie level stuff. You know what I mean? And that it makes sense why Rob Bowman then went on to direct the movie, because they saw that and they were like, oh yeah, okay, he can do this.
I mean, the ice aside, because that's pretty obvious, but you can see a lot of Rob Bowman's work here in the movie as well. You can tell it's made by the same guy.
Yeah, you really can. He's sort of got that fingerprint. Everything's very dark and murky.
Yeah, he likes things in shadow.
He does.
That dude.
He does. Yeah, and obviously, with Fight the Future, you've got a massive lot of ice. So he likes his ice as well. Yeah. He likes darkness and ice. Two signature things.
Someone has got a fortune coming from that dude as his shrink.
Yeah, they haven't already. Yeah,
I had to watch. I didn't have to. I know the episodes pretty well anyway. But I wanted to watch both the episodes again tonight before we recorded, and I'd completely forgotten that it was a weekday. So I sat and watched them when I got home from work. My little one sat mesmerised.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Obviously, there are certain episodes I can't show her. She's only 4. But I'm starting her quite young, and I think I now have another X-Files fan in the house.
You have a smart kid, clearly. At that age, to be able to sort of be entranced by this show. Yeah, well done. Well done.
She's quite a badass, my Nikita. She likes little horror-y, scary things, so melting green faces didn't faze her one bit.
She's just conditioned now. It means nothing rolls off her. Yeah, amazing. The more young X-Files we have, the better. That's all I can say.
Absolutely.
Awesome work.
Right about the time you get to covering seasons 9 and 10, she'll actually be old enough to come on and talk to you about it.
You joke about this, but I'm telling you, it's going to take me forever. I'm going to be 50 by the time this finishes.
Oh, don't. We're all going to be 50
We're all going to be old men.
Finishes.
We really are. We're going to be David Duchovny's age. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Well, yeah, brilliant. That's Colony and Endgame, two of the best X-Files episodes. Certainly two of the best in season 2, and I'd put them high up on my ultimate list, really.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favourite two-parters. I'm a big fan of the X-Files two-parters, and this is one of my favourite ones.
Yeah, absolutely the same. Definitely. It's a cracker. It's a cracker. So yeah, thanks for joining us, guys, for this one. It's been great to have you back, Brooker, and talk to you. You know, it's going to be fun when we do this again at some point.
It's been too long. I do like talking the X-Files. I like podcasting with you, mate, but I do like chatting the X-Files with you. It's always fun.
Oh, same. Absolutely same, mate. It's been brilliant. Well, tomorrow, episode 22, we have two much less good episodes. We've got Fearful Symmetry and Dodd Calm. So,
oh, God. Who have you got doing that? That's penance for something, that is.
Andrew Blaker and Clara Cook have taken the bullet, and they're going to be with you tomorrow.
Bless you, my children.
I know. Thank you. Thank you both so much for episode where, I don't think there'll be any reciting of poetry when we did Fearful Symmetry. But you never know. You never know. It might happen. But yeah, so make sure you join those guys for that as we continue our voyage towards season 11, which is coming at the start of 2018. So hopefully you're with us every day as we go through the entire X-Files catalogue, all the episodes up until January. So we'll be back with you tomorrow for more. Until then, check out the X-Files Basement Podcast fan group on Facebook and our Twitter, the X_cast, for all kinds of stuff going on over there. We'll be back tomorrow. And until then, remember, trust no one.